Okay guys, I was driving home and listening to some songs by Peggy Gou and other 90s house inspired producers, and I got so inspired. I got so inspired that I created this track. And in this video, I'm gonna do a full breakdown of this track. And don't forget that you can download the full project files in the description down below completely for free. Let's jump into FL Studio. Okay, so this is the full project with markers. So you can see all of the different sections in the track. And you can see like the green ones up here are all my automation on the master channel. The yellow ones are my melodic elements. The purples are some vocal chops. The red one is the bass line. The drums are the bluish one. And then these like gray, reddish are the SFXs. So I want to start with the drums. So we have a kick drum, just a standard kick drum. Just playing 4 to the floor. Then I have a clap with some ghost notes right here, create like a synth of rhythm. Then I've added like these extra clap adds here with a fruity delay free on it to get that ping pong delay thing going on. Next we have a closed hi-hat on the offbeat. And one small detail is that I'm using some randomization for the velocity. So you can see the velocity levels are changing all the way through. And for the panning as well. So panning from left to right. So we get a little bit more movement in the patch and in the hi-hats. Then I have an open hi-hat. So basically actually just layering on top of the closed hi-hat. Also with velocity changing a little bit and the panning also changing a little bit. And this is just to add a little bit more dynamics to my drums. So they move a little bit more in the stereo range and also like dynamically wise. Just play the open hi-hat. Just this. Then I have a tambourine down here. I'm just playing on some of the hits where the claps are playing, just to layer on top of it, because the tams has a little bit of that reverb sound, so just filling out the frequency range a little bit. Then I've added like these toms down here. And they are like really like, I did like a heavy high pass on them. So adding like, removing a lot of the low end because it was conflicting a little bit with the bass line. And then for the shaper box, I added some sidechaining. And then I have like layer all of my programmed drums with a splice loop. And I do this a lot because you can program really great drums, but sometimes you're just lacking a little bit of extra frequency stuff going on in your drums. And then it's really great tool to just pull in a loop because it can fill out some of those frequency areas. So this is the loop. It's this loop. Just works really well with the groove. Pretty cool. And then over here I have this ride loop. And just pretty straightforward, just on every beat. But it just works well to add a little bit of extra tension to the drums. And then as you can see down here, I'm using a little bit of filter modulation. So using a low pass filter on my drums. And this is actually done on a drum bus. So as you can see here, all of the blue elements in the mixer, besides the kick drum and the sidechain trigger, are being routed into the drum bus. So the drum bus is over here. And on the drum bus, I have added a little bit of extra processing. I'm using a soft limiter to clip off some of the peak transients in the drums. Let me just play here. So this area here is where it's being reduced, so it's clipping away some of these transients. This is really great to get a more rounded off sound. And then I'm using a little bit of EQ, so boosting this area, these low mids here, and then removing a little bit of the treble, these highs up here, because the hi-hats was a little bit too harsh, so I just reduced it a little bit. Then I put up Synth 2. This is a great plugin. I know it's a little bit expensive, but I'm using it all the time, and it just saves my mixes a lot because I can remove some resonant peaks in my sounds. So this is what it's doing. So it's removing some of these resonant peaks over here, and I can actually pull up the delta, then you can hear what it's removing. So all of this like nasty, really resonant sounds are being removed. And this is a really great tool. Then because we're doing like 90s house inspired tracks, I like to use these tape machine emulation plugins because they just add some really cool coloring, like distortion, saturation. So I'm just using one of the presets in this one is from Waves, the J37. And then I'm actually cranking up the saturation knob a lot, so it's on 6.4. And that means that my drums are hitting like the distortion inside the plugin and just crushes it, and it gives it like really cool sound. So if I play it, and if I take it off, it just makes it sound a little bit more grittier. Then I have the Ozone 9 Imager, and this is just to play around with the stereo field. So I'm boosting the stereo area in the higher end of the drums, basically just spreading it out, making it more stereo. So I'm making like this really wide, this a little bit wider, and then this one is being completely mono. And then lastly on the drum bus, the Fruity filter. And this is what's used for automation. So just making this way of just slowly introducing the drums. It's really great for, transition automation stuff. So let's move on to the bass line. So we are in the key of A minor. I love to use A minor. And then I programmed this bass line. And it's following the root note of the chords that I'm using in the piano and all the other stuff. I'm gonna show you it later. So the key for me to doing these groovy bass lines is to pull stuff off the grid. So if you look at the notes, they're not on the grid. Not all of them. And this is what really gives it that shuffly like feel to the bass line. And if we jump into where this bass line is coming from, it's coming from the Monarch from Native Instruments. This just makes really great bass sounds, and I just love to use it. But you can use Serum, Vital, whatever you're using for bass. And I route this to a bassline track in FL Studio. This is being routed into other channels. So these orange ones are synth channels. So I have put a reverb here. So just putting the Fruity Reverb 2 on 100% wet, and the dry is on 0. So that means that I can feed sounds into the reverb and then add reverb to the sound. And the reason why I'm moving to do this more is that instead of having to put reverb on all of the different individual channels, I can just use 1 or 2 reverbs. And the benefit is that your sounds sound as they are playing in one space, like in one room. And this just makes everything glue a little bit more together, in my opinion. At least that's what I like to do. And then you can see like I have a Fruity limiter after the reverb, and this is for sidechaining. And I'm going to show you this later. So it's just to sidechain the reverb when the kick is playing. And then I have a delay send using the H delay from Waves on 100% wet again. And then I have a chorus. I have the Tall chorus LX from Tall Audio, I think they're called. I think this one is for free. Then rolling off with the built-in equalizer of FL Studio, I'm rolling off the low end because I don't want to have any low end going on these synth channels. And this is actually a really cool tip, is that you can just use this built-in equalizer if you're just using like, let's say like cuts like I'm doing here, because then you don't have to load up a plugin. I think that's really, really effective, and you can save some CPU as well. Okay, so going back to the bassline, the bassline is being routed into the chorus and into the delay send. So we get a little bit for the chorus, a little bit more like stereo width, and also with the delays. So try to crank it up. I think that's really great. Try to add some chorus on your bass. You won't regret it. And at least for like this 90s house vibes, it's just amazing. Okay, on the actual bassline channel, I have a gate. This is only for removing like a really low noise that's apparently in the synth. Then I have the neutron free. And if you are a faithful watcher on the YouTube channel, you know that I'm a completely sucker for using the neutron free. It's just a powerhouse of plugins. So I'm using the equalizer to remove super low frequencies. Then right here, I'm removing some resonant frequencies that's caused by some of the notes. So I was just listening and I could hear that there was something that was a little bit like off and taking up too much like space in the mix. So I'm just reducing it. Then I'm rolling off the really high end of the bass line because that's not where the power and the body of the bass is. And I want to make room for my drums and other elements that have the energy lying here. The energy of the bass is obviously in the low end, so that's where I want to like have the energy. So if we play the sound, and then I have like the exciter only at this area from 300 hertz to 1.5 k hertz. And that's because it was just lacking a little bit of presence in that area. So this is put to the tape and just cranked up a lot, basically. So that works really well. Then I have the Soothe 2, but the Soothe 2 is not doing what it was doing to the drums. This is actually being used for sidechaining. And I have another video up here that you can watch if you want to, explaining like how you can set up the sidechain trigger inside Soothe. But basically I'm just going to explain it really quickly. Every time the kick is playing, the Soothe is going to duck down the frequencies of the kick in the bass. So if I play it, this is really handy if you want to really glue together the bass and the kick. But go and watch that video if you want to explain how to set it up. Because then I have the fruity limiter, which is also being used for sidechaining. But this is to sidechain the whole signal, so all the audio. I'm not using the kick drum. I'm using a sidechain trigger. And the sidechain trigger is just a short rim shot. Then I have disabled the audio. And then I have routed, you can see like this sidechain trigger down here in the mixer is being like sent to a lot of channels. And all of these channels that the sidechain trigger is being sent to is where I want to apply some sidechaining. The reason why I'm using this and not the kick drum is that because this is a short sound, I can then go into the fruity limiter and use the release setting of the envelope to control how deep the ducking is. So if we play, you can see the duck is rather short, but if I increase the release, you can see like it takes longer time to get the fruity limiter back on the starting position. So this is what it's doing. So you have a little bit more flexibility by just using like a short sound, like a rim shot, as the sidechain trigger input. But combining the Soothe 2 sidechaining with this sidechaining as well, it gives you so much control over the low end and just makes the kick and bass work really well together, in my opinion. So that's the bass line and the drums. I think we're ready to go to the melodic components. So because we want to create like 90s house and this Peggy Gou kind of vibe. I'm not saying that this is exactly like a Peggy Gou vibe. I was just inspired by it. But we need to navigate to the Korg M1. This plugin is amazing. It has so many presets. And if you want to get like 90s house feelings, go and get this plugin. So this is the sound that I've created. So you might like recognize this sound from a lot of house tracks. It's like the classic house piano. So these are the chords that I've used. So it's an A minor. So it's A minor. And I believe this next one is F major 7th. And then we have a G major. And then we have, I think this is a C sus2. I'm using like some help with the music theories. I'm using like different like sites on the internet to like explain to me what kind of chords that I can use. I'm also using the Scalar 2 plugin. When I found like chords that fitted the vibe well, I chop them up into these like fast chord chops. So you can also see, like, as with the bassline, these are not entirely on the grid. And that's what giving it that kind of bounce. Just insane vibes, in my opinion. And if we go to the mix channel, the M1 piano has a lot of stuff going on. I have Soothe 2, and this is to remove resonant peaks. There are actually a lot of them, so I just wanted to make this sound a little bit more pleasant. Then I'm using this Shaper Box plugin in a really cool way. So I'm using the panning component. So basically I'm gonna pan this from left to right, but I didn't want to pan like the lower end of the sound. I just wanted to pan like the transient, the upper range of the sound. So I'm splitting up the band that's happening right here. This upper range is being panned from left to right. This is a really cool way to add like panning interest to the sound, because this M1 piano can sound a little bit like static because I think it's sampled. So by adding these kind of effects, you can add movement to the sound. Then I'm using Neutron 3 for a little bit of EQ. I don't want us to go too much in depth with this because this video is going to be too long. But remember that you can download the full project. I'm going to include the stems, all of the presets, and hopefully if you have most of these plugins, the project will work, but then you can use the stems and the MIDI as well. But I'm boosting a little bit here in the lower mid area, a little bit of the higher end, and then there is like resonant frequencies that I want to remove. Then I'm adding a little bit of excitement also in like this 300 to 2K area, just to add a little bit of presence. Then the Fruity limiter is for automation, so doing low pass filtering, and I think this is here in the mix. You can see down here, it's playing here for like a build-up thing. So just using filters for automation, it's amazing. And then I have the Fruity limiter for sidechaining, and I don't want to explain how this works anymore. I also have like another video up here that you can watch where I go into depth like how you can do sidechaining in FL Studio. So you can watch this up here or up here. I want to go on to the next element, and this is perhaps the most recognized element of the song, the guitar lead. This is really, really cool. It has like that ATB 9 PM vibe. It's coming from Serum. It's a rather simple preset. It's just the basic shapes with this like really like pulse wave, a lot of unison. It's put to 8. Let me just enlarge this plugin so you can see a little bit better. Down here on the voices, I'm using the mono and the legato and then putting up the portamento here. And that's what gives it that sliding effect. So, and then a little bit of filtering effects. I added chorus, delay, and a little bit of reverb. Again, I'm gonna include this preset in the project folder that you can download down below. Then I just sat down on my MIDI keyboard and just played some riffs, just tried out some stuff, what worked. One really great tip is that when you're playing on a MIDI keyboard, let's say that you're doing that, and you just play some stuff, and then you find like a really cool melody of really cool chords. And then you have to go and press record and do that again, and you can't do it. But there's actually a feature where you can play some stuff, then you can go to tools, and then you can go to dump score log to select the pattern. And then this basically means that FL Studio is gonna remember what's being like put into the MIDI. Then you can tell FL Studio that it's gonna take those MIDI information and put that into your like pattern in the guitar. For this example, what's being played for the last 2 minutes or 5 minutes and up to 30 minutes. And I use that a lot when I'm just jamming. And then when I found something that really fits the vibe, I just press this button and then it loads up all of the MIDI notes. And then I just delete all the other stuff that I don't need and then take that part that I need. It's really, really great so you don't miss out on ideas that you create in the moment. So this guitar lead is being fed into the reverb send, the delay send, and also the chorus send. And then I'm adding, again, Fruity filter for automation stuff. And then I'm adding a little bit of extra delay from the Filter XT from Native Instruments. And And then I'm using a soft limiter also to just catch those really high transients and just cut them off. This plugin, I believe it's for free actually. It's really, really great, like as a soft limiter, but there is also a soft limiter in FL Studio that you can use. I just got really used to using this plugin, so I'm just using that. And then sidechaining right here. And then you can see like I'm also removing low end with the built-in equalizer here. Okay, so let's just play everything here. It's pretty cool. I really like that guitar thing. Okay, so we have a little bit more elements over here. I have like a synth pad here. Just playing the chords that we had from the piano, just sustained. And this sound is coming from Silent One, just a basic synth pad. And I think like processing wise, I actually only did some EQing. That's actually it. Then I routed it to the reverb send and the chorus send. Then I went back into the Korg M1 and looked for some more sounds. And then I found like these chimes. Really cool. Of course, this is coming from Korg M1. It's the wind chimes. I think processing wise, again, nothing crazy. Just adding a little bit of like removing the really low end here because this is a high sound and using sidechain. And then it's being sent into the reverb send and delay send. I don't want to overdo processing if it's not necessary. If the sound is great, I just tend to move on. So yeah, then I have like this bell sound down here. Just playing a really, really simple pattern. And of course, this is also from the Korg M1. It's called Cloud 9. And this actually doesn't have any processing on it and being sent into the reverb send and the chorus. And then the last like melodic element that I have is just this high string. And this has just been taken from a synth string VST that I just had like one A note being held down for a long time. And then I just bounced it to audio because then you get like this high tension thing that works really well in like classic house. Okay, so that was all of my melodic components. So as you can see here, all of the yellow elements are being routed into an instrument bus. And this is just to add some processing on all of the elements. So I'm using Soothe 2, again, just to remove some resonant areas. So it's just removing a little bit more. I really love this plugin, but be careful that you don't overdo it because you can also lose some punch in the sound by removing the resonance. Then I'm using Neurofront 3 and just to remove like low ends because I want to make room for my bass and my kick drum. And then I'm boosting like this 300 Hertz area. And then I'm using a compressor just to glue stuff a little bit together. Okay, so that's like my melodic elements. If we should move on, I have all of these vocals, stabs, chops that I have here. So this is actually, I think it's two samples from Splice. This is the first sound. Hey, ho, hey. It's been pitched down to fit the key of the track. And then it's being routed into this vocal bus. And this is like how it sounds now. So I've chopped it up here. You can see that I just used it some places. So here, this is really low in the mix. Let me just turn it up. Then I found like another vocal sample in Splice, and it's this one. You always listen what they said, alright. And I couldn't like figure out how to make the tempo match my project. So I actually ended up just trying to stretch it to where it just sounded like it was matching the tempo of the track. And then I just did some chops, and this is what I came up with. And this is like mostly how I work with vocals and vocal samples from Splice. I just love to do these crazy chops and just make my own vocal phrases with the chops. this is what I do like a lot of times when I'm producing, and I just think it's fun. Then I'm routing all of this vocal stuff into a channel where I have routed this channel to the reverb synth and the chorus synth. And then I'm adding some EQ. This is to remove the low end and also the high end, because I wanted to have this like as a more tucked in the background kind of sound, and also like getting like a telephone effect kind of. Yeah, and you could also say like lo-fi sound. And then for the, I have like a delay as well from Fruity 3. And then I have this shaper box here for sidechaining. Yeah, this is like all of them together. Like, it's just a happy accident. I didn't like know if this was gonna work. I was just sitting and jamming, and I really encourage you just to do that. Sit and jam, and when something just hits, use it. And don't be afraid that it might be a little bit off or might be a little bit weird. If you get a feeling from doing something, just stick to it. Stick to what you think is cool, not what everybody else thinks is cool. So let's just play like everything that we have here with the vocals and stuff. They just blend really well together with the other melodic elements. So I think it was a pretty cool, happy accident. Okay, so we're actually pretty done with all of the elements. Like down here are just some effects and stuff. And this is mainly like cymbal crashes, uplifters, and small like laser effects down here. I don't want to touch so much upon that because this is just some rather basic stuff. Most of them are just spliced samples. But one thing that I want to touch upon is using texture loops and field recordings. And if you're watching some of my other videos, you know that I love to use texture loops, and it's just because they add character. So I have like a texture loop here. Let me just turn it up. And it's just a recording while I was on vacation, just capturing the vibe of a city and just blending that in the background together with all your other elements. It just adds uniqueness and character, some organic vibes almost, I would say. Take a listen to this in the beginning. Let me just turn it up. It's just a subtle thing, but it just adds some character, and it just gives it like a really warm feeling, in my opinion. And if you're interested in getting some of these like field recordings, I have a sample pack that you can check out on my web shop. I'll just leave a link in the description down below. I really encourage you to try using field recordings, or just go outside and record some stuff on your phone. That will be really cool to introduce into your tracks. I think I will talk a little bit about like the arrangement and stuff. So up here, I told you that I had like all of these green elements are stuff that's happening on the master. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm just going to briefly tell what it does and then play it. So this one is just doing some volume automation. So reducing the volume just before the drop. So just making it a little bit quieter, and then when the drop hits, it feels like it's louder, but it's actually normal loudness. Then this one down here is an EQ. So it's the Fruity EQ, and it's just a high pass filter. I really love that drop actually. So using like a high pass filter, it almost reminds us about like that DJ effect, and it just creates tension. It builds upwards towards something. Then the next one is also something that I use a lot. You might have seen it before in my other videos. It's to use like a stereo plugin that basically reduces the stereo width of the track just before the drop. So this plugin from Kilohertz, which is for free, you can see. So it just reduces the width of the track, so it feels like it's getting closer to mono, and then maybe a little bit more thin. And then when the drop hits, it just feels really big. I think it's a really cool effect. It's effective and it works. Then the last one is adding some reverb on the master bus. This is just this reverb here. So just adding like some width automation. because I wanted to have like a little bit more of a washed out effect on the build-up. So the sounds gets a little bit more washed out and with the reverb. And then when the drop hits, it just hits really hard. That was like the master channel automation. And then I have like filter automation right here for the guitar lead. That's for the build-up into drop 2. So just by using like a low pass filter, removing some of the high ends of the guitar lead, then I touched upon like also using the filter for the Korg M1 piano down here. So one thing that I want to like touch upon is that you can see up here I have the intro, build up, drop 1 part A, drop 1 part B, and then a breakdown, then a build up here again into drop 2 part A, and then drop 2 part B, and then an outro. Because I have like this choppy piano, I didn't want to have this to play through the whole track because then it's going to be a little bit too repetitive. So in the intro, I actually made these chords longer. So it sounds like this. And then when it just transitions into those choppy ones, we know as a listener, something is trying to pick up pace and we're building upwards towards something. So it works really well when we're playing like from this intro into the build-up. So we feel like the energy, it's building upwards. And it's the same thing with the breakdown into the build-up for the drop 2. It's also like these longer notes. And it just works really well. Then I'm using this synth pad down here. And as you can see, I'm not using that in the part A of the drop 1. And that's basically just to, instead of having everything to play through the whole track, you don't have like that dynamic change in the track. You don't have like areas where there's like a lot of energy and then areas where it's maybe a little bit softer, a little bit more melodic. So that's why I'm keeping like the synth pad for the part B up here for drop 1 and also for like part B of drop 2. It's just to make some changes. That's also where I'm introducing these chimes and the bell from the Korg M1 down here. They are not playing together with the guitar lead here because I wanted to have like that change. So we kind of change the mood of the track and also like we do like a transition section change and it just keeps a little more interest into the arrangement in my opinion. And also because if we zoom in closer here, when we have the part B here, that's also where I'm introducing the vocal chops. And it has two reasons. One is because the guitar lead is really busy in the same frequency area of the vocal chops. And if I have to have these two to play together, it would have been a little bit too messy. So that's why I actually just made the decision of having one part where the guitar lead is playing and another part where the vocals are playing. And I think it actually turned out pretty well because we have that natural change here. So we shift over to something else. And for the drums, I actually don't do that much changes. I'm introducing the ride loop and then taking it out and also with the top loop. So it's also a matter of just taking out stuff and putting stuff in. So for the breakdown here, we have like filter cutoff for the piano. And it's just like, if you think of like driving a car and you hit the throttle, like the speeder of the car, and then right here we're pressing the brakes now. Now we're breaking down the track. It's getting a little bit like not so fast paced because then we get what's it called, like the dynamic, like the contrast to fast pace and a little bit of slow pace. So if we just play everything. So the track kind of breathes a little bit for a moment before it picks up pace. So now we have like the build up here, like the last build up before drop 2. And this is where this high string thing is being like come into play. So if you listen down to it. It's funny because it's just like one note that's being held down, like it's a high A note that's being played. It sounds really stupid on its own, but it's just like a classic trick in the house realm to add this, because it just creates like that tension that it's really like pushing towards the drop 2. After the drop 2 part B, I have the outro, where you can see I'm stripping off elements. So I'm not using the Korg M1 chimes, I'm not using the guitar lead, also removing the vocal chops and also some of the drums. And you can see like this part here, we drop off the bass as well. And then we are actually also using the low pass filter from the drum bus, doing like this low pass filtering of the drums. I think like that's actually it for the arrangement. So it's a rather simple arrangement. I don't have like anything crazy on the master here because it was like a YouTube project. So usually I will bounce this out and then I will open another session and do mastering. What I'm doing here is that I'm adding like the soft limiter just to catch some peaks. Just some really loud transients, because then I can push the limiter a little bit more. Then I'm using this really cool plugin called Coral Baxter, and it's a Bandax whole EQ type, and then I'm just boosting with a high shelf the upper range, like from 7k hertz area, and then just upwards with, I think it's 1 dB of, almost one, like a half dB of gain. So just a little bit, but just colors the sound in a really cool way. And then I'm using the Ozone 9 for mastering. The equalizer is actually not doing anything. The imager is just to make sure that everything from 150 hertz and downwards is completely in mono. And then I'm boosting like a little bit like for the track, so it gets a little bit wider, because it's a little bit mono-ish due to the kick drum being really present and the bass line as well. So I just wanted to add that. And then, of course, like the maximizer for adding some volume. So that's actually it. I'm no mastering engineer. I will not take any credit for that, but that's just what I do, and it works for me. And you might disagree on this like channel strip, but yeah, I'm just doing what feels nice to me, and hopefully I can inspire you guys as well. That's why I do these videos. That's it for like this track breakdown. I think I want to like just let's just play from the intro into the drop 1. You can just sit back and enjoy the track. Thank you so much for watching this video. Pretty cool. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this really long breakdown tutorial of this 90s house Peggy Gou track that I made. Don't forget that you can download the full project files and the stems and the MIDI and the preset, all that stuff for free. I'm gonna leave a download link down below in the description, so don't miss out on that. If you like this video, it means so much to me if you will smash that like button or even subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss any future videos on the channel. And if you want to support me even further, you can buy me a coffee. It means that you're donating some money to this channel. It's gonna help me to produce more videos, higher quality of the videos, and more frequently. And basically, I'm gonna help you more, and you're also gonna help me a lot financially. So you can check out the link in the description down below if you want to buy me a coffee. Thank you so much. So guys, I hope to see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.